Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the research so you don't have to. Today, we're getting into something that causes, well, a lot of anxiety and really impacts daily life for so many. Food allergies.
Especially nut allergies. Right?
Exactly, nut allergies. And you probably know this. If you or someone in your family has one nut allergy, the usual advice is often just avoid all nuts.
It's the standard playbook.
But here's the big question we're tackling today. Is that always necessary? That really broad, life-limiting avoidance?
It's a huge hurdle, isn't it? I mean, the default for so long has been just cut them all out, partly because the reactions can be severe and, well, honestly, we lacked really precise data. Families feel so restricted.
Right, but what if we could get much, much sharper about it?
Precisely. And that's why this deep dive is so fascinating. We're looking at a really significant European study called the ProNuts study.
And this wasn't just, asking people questions or doing the standard blood test. This study used what they call challenge-proven methods.
That's the absolute key. Challenge-proven. They didn't just guess based on general markers. They actually tested individual sensitivities carefully.
How did they do that?
Well, it involved very controlled sequential food challenges, to pinpoint exactly which nuts caused a reaction in each child. It goes way beyond self-reports or those general IgE tests.
Which can sometimes overestimate things, right?
Exactly. They often overpredict who will actually react if they eat the food.
Okay, so our promise to you listening is that we're going to unpack why this research is, well, it feels like a genuine game changer. We'll look at what it tells us about how allergies develop, maybe why they differ between places, and crucially, what it all means for maybe getting some dietary freedom back, improving quality of life. Okay, let's really dig in.
So what's really impressive here is just how rigorous this study was. They recruited children aged 6 months right up to 16 years.
Wow, quite a range.
Yeah, and critically, these kids already had at least one confirmed allergy to a nut or to sesame seed.
Yeah.
That was the starting point.
Well,
Then, these children went through sequential diagnostic food challenges for all the other nuts and sesame seed they weren't already known to be allergic to.
so one by one, carefully testing each nut.
Exactly. A very meticulous process. And they did this across 3 different European centers, London, Geneva, and Valencia.
So they were really trying to pin down how often these allergies actually occur together, based on real reactions, not just guesswork or the standard tests.
Right.
And when they looked at the results, well, at first glance, it might sound like it confirms the worst fears, right? What did they find about allergies happening together?
Well, yeah, the study found a much higher rate of coexistent peanut, tree nut, and sesame allergies than perhaps people expected based on older data. Overall, a really substantial number, 60.7% of the kids.
Wow.
That's 74 out of the 122. Actually had more than one nut or sesame allergy.
60%, that's huge.
It is. Previous studies, often looking back retrospectively or using maybe less direct methods, they'd estimated it lower, maybe 20% to 50%.
Okay, so if you had one nut allergy, the odds were actually better than 50-50 that you had another one. That definitely explains why everyone's been so cautious.
Absolutely validates that caution.
It sounds initially pretty discouraging, but then, and this is where it gets really interesting, the real turning point. Despite that high coexistence rate, doing those precise, challenge-proven tests allowed for something pretty amazing.
It really did. Because they did these incredibly thorough sequential oral food challenges, the study showed that many kids were actually tolerant to lots of other nuts.
Tolerant meaning they could eat them safely?
Yes, safely. Get this. Participants were able to safely introduce a median of 9 nuts back into their diet.
9.
9. A median average of 9. Just think about that for a second. It's powerful evidence that this kind of rigorous science-backed testing can dramatically slash those dietary restrictions.
9 nuts. That's not just a small change. That opens up a whole world, doesn't it? Pesto, pastries, different snacks. Freedom from that constant fear at school lunches, birthday parties. It's a massive shift from just avoiding everything. Now, you mentioned 3 centers, London, Geneva, Valencia. Did they see differences between those places?
It absolutely did. Clear geographic variations, which points towards, environmental factors maybe playing a role.
Like what?
Well, for instance, peanut allergy, most common in London. But in Geneva, cashew and pistachio allergies were much more prominent.
Interesting.
And then over in Valencia, Spain, walnut and pecan allergies were significantly more common. And interestingly, in Valencia, they found 0 cases of sesame seed allergy. 0.
Really? Why?
Well, The researchers suggest it might be because a very high percentage of kids there, like 93%, were already eating sesame seed regularly before the study even started.
Wow. So local diets, what people are exposed to early on, could really shape which allergies pop up where. That makes sense.
It seems plausible, yes.
Okay, so did they find specific nuts that tended to cluster together? Like if you're allergic to one, you're really likely to be allergic to another specific one.
Yes, they found some very strong correlations. Cashew and pistachio allergies, for example.
Yeah.
They often went hand in hand, extremely high correlation.
Okay, cashew and pistachio.
Similarly, walnut and pecan allergies were very strongly linked. Makes sense. They're botanically related.
Right.
They also found another cluster linking macadamia nut, pecan, walnut, and hazelnut.
What does that clustering tell us?
Well, it likely points to similarities in the protein structures of those nuts, or what we call cross-reactivity. The immune system might mistake one nut for another if their proteins look alike chemically.
Got it. So this brings up a really practical question for parents, for doctors. What factors seem to predict whether a child would end up with just one allergy or multiple ones?
Age. Age was a big one.
Older or younger?
Older. Children over 36 months, so older than 3 years old, had higher odds of having multiple nut allergies.
Interesting. So not necessarily from infancy.
The risk increased after age 3, according to this data. The study centers also matter. Valencia had higher odds of multiple allergies compared to Geneva, and Geneva higher than London, reflecting those geographic patterns again.
Okay, but that age finding is really key. It suggests what the researchers called a secondary spread of nut allergies.
Exactly. A secondary spread that seems to happen in slightly older children.
That phrase, secondary spread, is fascinating. It almost sounds like having one allergy might make you more susceptible as you get older to developing others.
That's the implication, yes. A really intriguing concept.
Now, doing over 800 of these oral food challenges, that sounds intense. And obviously there are risks involved. How safe did it turn out to be?
Well, you're right. It was very labor-intensive and definitely carried risks. About a quarter of the challenges, 1 in 4, resulted in a positive allergic reaction.
Okay.
And the study did report that a small number of children, understandably, dropped out, either because they were worried about severe reactions or because they actually had a significant reaction during one of the challenges.
That makes sense.
There were also some interesting differences in how reactions were managed. Valencia, for instance, used epinephrine, the EpiPen, in a much higher percentage of positive challenges compared to London, sometimes even for reactions that weren't classified as severe, which just highlights that clinical practices can vary quite a bit between centers.
Right. So the challenges work for diagnosis. They're incredibly precise, but they absolutely need expert medical supervision and aren't risk-free.
Absolutely not. Needs to be done in a controlled setting.
When reactions did happen, did certain nuts seem to cause worse ones?
They did look at severity scores. Brazil nut, sesame, and macadamia nut challenges tended to have the highest symptom severity scores. These often involve, breathing issues, lower respiratory tract, or cardiovascular symptoms.
Okay, they sound serious.
They can be. Conversely, reactions to pine nut, hazelnut, and almond generally had the lowest severity scores in this study.
But you have to be careful with those findings.
Yeah, it's worth noting the number of challenges for some nuts, like Brazil nut or macadamia, was relatively low. So those specific severity findings are maybe a bit less certain than for the more common nuts like peanut or hazelnut.
Right, need more data points there. Okay, so let's pull this all together. What's the big takeaway from this deep dive for you listening at home and maybe for how allergies are managed going forward?
I think the ProNut study gives us really solid challenge-proven evidence that shifts the whole approach away from automatic blanket avoidance. Yes, it confirmed a high number, that 60.7% do have more than one allergy. That's real.
That does.
But it also clearly, unequivocally showed that with precise, careful testing, many children can safely bring nuts back into their diet. A median of 9 nuts. That's the huge news here.
It's a monumental shift from just saying avoid all nuts.
Absolutely. It opens up massive possibilities for diet and quality of life.
That selective reintroduction is potentially life-changing. But that other finding about the secondary spread, that also opens up a really fascinating, maybe even provocative question about the future, doesn't it? About prevention.
It really does. That finding that being older than 3 predicts having multiple allergies, suggesting the secondary spread happens later, that's incredibly important. It immediately makes you wonder,
could we stop it?
Exactly. Could early, precise intervention, maybe targeted introduction of certain nuts in toddlers, perhaps something like the immunotherapy approaches we've seen being successful for peanut allergy. Could that actually prevent kids from developing those additional nut allergies later on?
Wow, that's a powerful thought. Thinking about a future where allergy management isn't just about safer eating through avoidance, but about actively minimizing restrictions.
Right. Minimizing them through scientific precision, maybe even preventing that secondary spread altogether.
Imagine that. It's definitely something profound to consider as allergy science keeps moving forward.